All right, welcome back. Welcome to the Roland GRIMES, not just sports and entertainment show. Once again, I'm your host, Roland Bubba Grimes, and as always, I'm glad you had a chance to join us. You may hear some soulful music in the background. My next guest is a gentleman who I had the opportunity to hear play live with his instrument of choice. And I've been chasing him for 12 months, trying to get him on the Roland GRIMES show. And finally, folks, I had the opportunity to get him here. In a few minutes, I'm going to introduce you to Mr. Sherrod Jr., saxophonist extraordinaire. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a few minutes on this edition of the Roland GRIMES, not just sports and entertainment show. Sit tight. Welcome back. Welcome back to Roland GRIMES, not just sports and entertainment show. I'm your host, Roland Bubba Grimes. And in the background, I'm going to turn it down just a little bit, but I want you to have the opportunity to hear some of the great music of my guest, Mr. Sherrod Jr. Folks, put your hands together for him. Art, my pleasure.
Thank you, man.
Now, as I started, I told folks that I had a chance to hear you play one time. And I said, man, can I get your card? Can I get your... And I said, man, look, I have a little talk show that I do. Actually, it's going to be a big talk show. Man, I got to get you on. He said, all right, brother. And that's kind of where it ended. And then from then on, I chased you, man. Hard, but it was worth it, man. Tell me, look, we're going to jump right into it. You have a project out right now.
Yeah.
And it's affectionately called Sherrod Jr. Seasons. Yeah. Many times we ask artists, what was the inspiration for this compilation? Tell me about it.
With this particular record, I was going through a lot of different changes in life. You know, from going through a crazy divorce to trying to restart my life.
A divorce is never crazy?
Yeah, I don't think there's such thing as a
non-crazy divorce.
Yeah, right. So I was going through a lot of things, and so it was appropriate, I thought, to name the record Seasons, because in life you go through different transitions, you go through different seasons, and so I said, you know what, that's perfect. And so each song on there kind of represents a different part of my life at that point in time when I was recording.
Now this is what I'm listening to now. I want to almost say, we fall down, but we get up. Is that what that is?
That's it right there, man. Yeah.
Now, I want to give you credit as being the originator, but someone did that before you.
Yeah, Donnie McClurkin. You know, that's his song. But I just thought that was a great song to do because, like I said, we all fall down, and it's just through life transition. You're gonna fall down at some point, but you gotta get back up.
Well, now you're from this area, from what I understand.
No, I'm actually from Palestine, Texas.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm a homegrown Texan, man.
That's right.
Yeah. I remind all my Redskin fans that all the time.
All right, so get out. Now, being a homegrown Texan, what are 2 or 3 of the major differences between the culture and the great state of Texas and the Mid-Atlantic region of Washington, D.C.?
Well,
Give me 2 or 3 other than the Cowboys and the Redskins.
Okay, I'll cut that one out. Well, one, I just think that Texans, it's just a different culture there in terms of just the Southern hospitality. Life, cost of living is a lot cheaper there too.
So people speak to each other when they walk down the street?
Absolutely, they make eye contact and that kind of deal. And just music is, it's plentiful in both areas, but it's different at the same time. So such greats came from Houston. We got Bobby Lau, and Joe Sample, and Kurt Whalum, and then you go back, you have so many incredible musicians, that came out of that era.
Sure. Well, it's the second biggest state in the union, third biggest state in the union. So, all of us came from Texas at one point or another.
That's right.
So, or at least played football or played there one way or another. I remember driving through. That's another story. We'll get into that another time. But what brought you to the Mid-Atlantic region?
Well, I actually went to school. I went to the Naval Academy. So, I told him I actually wanted to go to school in Texas. I wanted to go to the University of Texas.
Well, there's 9,000 schools in Texas.
That's true.
And University of Texas has 47 campuses by itself. Right?
Yeah, but I wanted to go to the one in Austin.
You wanted to go to the big one.
Right, because I wanted to be a doctor and had all these aspirations. But my dad had mentioned that he introduced me to this guy that went to the Naval Academy. He was in the Naval Academy at the time. And so I told him I would apply, and I said, if I get in, I'll go. Otherwise, I'm going to Austin. Okay. So it was that kind of deal, and I had really good grades, and
sure.
So I had some options. Yeah, so I had some options, but I thought I was going to Austin, and I went to the mailbox and opened it up, and I saw the acceptance letter. So I said, I guess I'm going to Maryland. So the
acceptance letter with that goat on the cover of it.
Yeah, man. So
what years were you at Naval Academy?
92 through 96. Yeah, man. And I spent a year in Rhode Island at their prep school. In 91, from 91 to 92, I was at the Naval Academy prep school in Rhode Island, which was exciting. That was probably, I'd have to say that particular year was probably my most memorable year because I got a chance. That was my first time, obviously, away from home.
Sure.
And just meeting so many different people from different areas, different cultures, different backgrounds. And I have so many friends. I have probably more friends that I still keep in contact there, that that attended the prep school, than I did through the 4 years to the Naval Academy. And we still, it's like a big fraternity, because you're not supposed to pledge while you're there, so it's like a big fraternity. So.
Well, man, that's a heck of an experience. Now, since many of the people that I meet who impress me with their intellectual prowess are also musicians. Now, a good friend of mine kind of explained to me that people who are accomplished musicians, there's something in the way that they learn, something in the way that they apply what they hear, what they see, what they feel, and then it transfers over into academics. Do you kind of feel that way as well, or?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mathematical thing. You'll find out that a lot of musicians are fairly mathematically
from scales on.
Right, because music is really numbers, if you really think about it.
A translation of, okay.
Right, so a lot of times when we're playing or maybe someone else is unfamiliar with a song, you might hear them count and say, we're on the 1, we're on the 3. So it's telling you we're on the third, third, yeah, we're on the third note of that scale. So, and then just learning music is very methodical, and it's like math. You can apply to so many different things.
It can be. It's very methodical. It can be boring. It can be.
Yeah.
And you learn music a lot of times without a bunch of people sitting around clapping for you. Yeah. It's just you in that room.
Right. Because if you heard us practice, you probably wouldn't be clapping, because we play so many different things that probably aren't as pleasing, that's so different from what you may hear on stage.
Until you refine it and then put it on stage.
Right. And for technique and things like that, we do things that, people listen to and are like, what is that?
Right.
But yeah, but from an academic standpoint, music helps. Because you're learning, you have to learn your concert B flat scale, and then you have to learn how to apply, you know, the intervals to the concert C scale and the concert D scale and all of those.
Sure.
So it's I found it to be very helpful.
You know, and it's interesting because I was so ingrained in basketball and football when I was growing up that I spent most of my time doing that. But I always said, man, I want to spend the time to learn an instrument. Now I have my inner Bootsy Collins somewhere inside of me that's playing that thing all the time. And I figure the second half of my life, you know, I'll be like Larry Graham. I'll be, you know, that new, you know, plucker.
Yeah. It's always
but who knows? But the first thing is, if I want to break into learning how to read music, play music, what's one of my first steps, even at this stage in my life?
Well, you know, I would suggest find someone that you know, an artist that you really admire.
They won't talk to me.
Well, that's all right. Just go buy their record.
Okay.
Go buy their record.
Bootsy, I'm buying your record.
That's right, Bootsy, send me some money. But you know, buy the record because you want to stay inspired.
Right.
And then try to find someone that can kind of take you under their wing and kind of give you direction, because when we get older, we become frustrated a lot quicker.
And we want to get back, teach, and do other things.
Yeah. So the thing is, you know, when you get, like, even for me, like when I want to learn a different instrument, you know, I want everything to be just like my saxophone.
I got you. You want to pick up and make it happen.
Right. I want to just pick it up and make it happen.
That makes sense.
And, you know, as we get older, like I said, we become a little less patient. Mm-hmm. So getting someone that can help you to tell you, okay, here's the order. You need to find you a good bass. We're going to go to the store together, and we're going to get a bass that will work for you. Mm-hmm. And then we're going to get this material. So find someone that can really help you and kind of pave the way for you, versus you just kind of diving in there, sitting at home with these books, trying to figure out how to make things happen.
Right.
You know,
like I did when I first learned a computer.
Yeah. You know?
Microsoft for Dummies. Bass player for dummies. Folks, we'll be back in a few minutes. Sherrod and I, when we come back, we're going to talk about his most current project, which we did briefly, but he has some concerts coming up shortly, and I'm sure that there'll be some more after that, but there's one in particular that I want to tell you about. We'll be back soon. Sit tight. Roland Grimes Show. You're listening to the soulful sounds of my guest, Mr. R. Sherrod Jr., and this is also from his most recent release called Seasons. Now, Art, I understand that you have another project that you're working on right now musically. You're going to be introducing to the world soon. Tell us about that.
You know, on every record, you know, I have a gospel song, and I did that on purpose. I grew up in a very small church, Southern Baptist, and God has always been a part of my life. Mm-hmm. And I've always wanted to record a gospel record. Okay. So I decided to go from song 1 all the way to song 12 with gospel.
So a gospel CD.
It's going to be a totally gospel CD. And I'm actually recording 2 at one time. I'm recording my jazz record, but I'm finishing up on my gospel record first, and then going to move on to the jazz record. But you know, I'm excited about it because this particular record, I went back and grabbed songs that I liked and I thought that meant something.
Give me an example of one.
Nobody Greater, which is my title track. You know, I just wanted to do something people can listen to and relate to. as an instrumentalist, it's really tough to do well at recording a record just with all originals. And I want to break into that gospel market. And so I felt that was the best way. So, I have songs on there like Nobody Greater. Let's see. Jesus Walk With Me. I have.
Now, how much of a difference is it to put together a gospel CD than it is to put together a jazz CD?
It's similar in the sense that when you make a record, you want it to mean something. You want to have a direction.
Okay.
And so, for me, on the gospel side, just choosing songs, because there's so many songs that you can play.
Sure.
But you want to have a song that means something, but one that actually translates well from an instrumental standpoint. And it keeps your attention. So, for instance, I did How Excellent. Songs like that just have a lot of depth, and instrumentally you can relate to them, you can sing along with them, and let it minister to you, or you can let it just play in the background.
Now, as I listen to it, you obviously are not just playing on the record by your damn self. You got some other people there with you.
Yeah.
How do you assemble these drums, these keyboards, these acoustic guitars, whatever it is that I'm hearing? How do you put that together?
One, I always get really good producers. That's one of the, I don't profess to be a great producer, but I know what I want to hear. But hiring great producers is important, from an artist standpoint. Because a lot of artists jump into this thing and they want to play all the instruments and they want to produce all of the songs. And I like to let people do what they do best. And for me, if it's kind of just laying out the foundation, saying this is what I want, this is kind of what I want to sound, and and good thing for computers and technology, because with most of my records, I don't necessarily see all of the musicians. We're sending tracks via the computer, and we're assembling them. I'm recording. I could be recording in my home studio. I could be recording in California, and so everybody's shooting tracks.
So you can get someone to work on it from anywhere in the world.
Yeah. For instance, on this record here, I have Will Downing on there, and Will recorded at his home studio and sent me the tracks, and then I listened to them, and then I sent them down to the producer, and we talked about them, and then the producer assembled them, sent them back, and it's just kind of a back and forth type of thing. I had Gerald Albright playing bass on there. And he recorded his bass at his home studio. And Chuck Loeb, he was in the middle of recording his record, or mixing his record actually, and he played on the record. Marcus Johnson, DC.
Sure. Yeah, we had him on the show. Yeah. Now, and from the business side of it, I always wonder, how does this work? Now, someone records on your record, sends you some stuff to put on into your track. Right. Do you pay them?
Oh, absolutely. Oh, yeah. So you pay them as a work for hire.
Okay.
So, in most cases. Now, some artists, it gets a little deeper than that, where you're paying them to play, and then they're requiring that you pay them X amount of points per record, and that kind of deal. But for the most part, it's work for hire. You pay them, and that's it. But then if you have a song that you're re-recording, from another artist, like on my first record, I re-recorded Sarah Smile.
Hall & Oates.
Absolutely.
Okay.
So then what I had to do is, one, I had to get all the necessary mechanical licenses in place, and so that I could re-record it for profit, for commercial use. And the musicians, you pay all of those guys, so that's kind of how it works. But the business piece, that's huge, for musicians. A lot of musicians don't want to really get into that business world, but that's you gotta be in there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm having that conversation with some folks right now. Matter of fact, I think around the time, this mid-October, George Clinton is coming to the area, and we're hoping to have a conversation with him about the business end of it and some of the copyright infringements that he feels has happened over the years to many of the artists, and we're not going to get into that much right now in this conversation. But how do you determine a Will Downing to play, or a Gerald Albright, or a Jeff Loeb? What is it that you're looking for? Is it in that particular song, or is it that person, or is it the way that they play? And you say, man, I want that on my record.
Sometimes it's all of those. Okay. You know, it's sometimes you want to, for instance, if I wanted you on my record, I might.
You know, I was just getting ready to suggest that.
I know
you can put the voice on at the intro.
Or something, or get the bass. We got time.
We got time to work the bass.
Yeah. You know, so sometimes you write a song around an artist, or you have a song and you can hear that artist, you know, their contribution based on what they do. So, you know, actually for this song right here that you're listening to now, that's Will Downing on there. And the producer and I were talking, and I'd worked with Will, and so Will said, yeah, you know, call me. And he was supposed to record on my first record, and he became ill.
Yeah,
and
right.
so as he was coming out of his illness, he said, yeah, well, send me the tracks. I'll knock them out. Okay. You know, and so sometimes you just hear that artist doing those songs.
Okay. Now we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back because I want to talk to you about some concerts you have coming up. Okay. I said I was going to do it in this segment, but I really wanted to see that animation come out of you when we talk about some of those different artists and some of that music. But as we take this break, how long have you been playing this instrument?
I've been playing this instrument for almost 30 years. So I'm like 32 right now, like 32, yeah.
You've been playing since you were 24 months old.
Right, I was playing in the womb.
We went over that earlier.
Yeah, so you guys do the math, so I'm like, you know, yeah.
Those jokers start playing before they come out. You know, why the saxophone? What was it? How did that thing grab itself around your neck and just hold on to you?
Well, it's kind of an interesting story because the saxophone was not my first instrument of choice. My first instrument of choice was I wanted to play drums. That was what I really wanted. All boys want to play drums.
And you know, I was getting ready to say that. We want to make noise.
We want to make noise.
And tear stuff up.
Yeah, because at that point in time, that's the only instrument. You're like, man,
let me get it out of me.
Yeah. Right. But the problem with that was my mom worked
from
midnight.
Hear that noise.
Yeah. Well, she worked from midnight until like 7, 8 in the morning. And so she sleep from like 6 in the evening until like around 11 o'clock. And my dad worked from 7 a.m. to 4:30. You know, so that wasn't really an option. There was no time for practicing a drum at that time of night. So I then wanted to play the trumpet. And I was pretty set on it. I'd gone look at trumpets.
Couldn't find one though, right?
No, it wasn't that. My aunt, who was a music major in Texas, had convinced my mother that it would mess my teeth. It would push my teeth in if I played the trumpet.
That's all she needed to hear.
That's all she was
my
like,
baby gonna lose his good looks.
Right.
I spent all this time making him.
Yeah, now I'm gonna mess his teeth up. So, and you know, right around the time that I started playing, I really started noticing that boys and girls don't really look the same. And I was starting to get interested in these girls, and I said, okay, well, what instrument would the girls like? And it was immediately, I was like, the saxophone. And the rest is history.
Now, I'm going to go there. What is it about the saxophone that drives the girls crazy?
I think because it's so close to a voice. You know, a saxophone is one of the instruments that is really, really in tune with the vocals. So it's very close to it. I mean,
it hits a note and sounds like someone's singing it.
Yeah. I mean, and in some cases, when we're actually playing, we're actually singing into the horn. When you hear certain when we're tonalities and things like that, we may actually be humming into or singing into the horn. Yeah. So it's I think it's so close to the human voice. And so, you know,
well, I'll tell you what, one of the recurring themes on the Roland Grimes show is every time I bring on these dynamic artists, and musicians, and athletes, and authors, and all these great people, they all seem, especially the male genre, they always seem to say in the end or somewhere in between, I was interested in girls. So I decided to put on a helmet and some cleats or pick up a basketball.
Hey, man, we have to be motivated some kind of way. What are you talking about?
And you have to sustain that motivation. Because girls are never going to go anywhere, right?
We hope not. Because you just take me now.
I'm done.
Now, yeah, I'm out. I'm out of the game.
So we just going to have to put a whole show around why these females inspire us so much. Folks, sit tight. We're going to come back and talk about his concerts, and then we're going to bid you adieu. But for right now, we'll be back in a moment. Roland Grimes Show. Sit tight. Thank you, Roland Grimes. Roland Bubba Grimes. Roland Grimes, not just sports entertainment show. Here with my man Art Sherrod Jr. I had a chance to hear Art Sherrod play at a place called the Fish Market. And man, I climbed over the railing. I knocked over a midget, or what are they do? No, that's inappropriate now. What's it? Horizontally, vertically challenged. A vertically challenged individual. Challenged individual.
Right.
And I said, man, and you're right. I mean, we talked about how the saxophone attracts the female gender, but it also, I mean, it got me, man. I was hooked. And Maceo Parker was one of my all-time favorite artists. And I actually had a chance to see him perform live in front with his band long after the JBs, long after P-Funk. And he came to Syracuse when I was in school there. And it was the most incredible experience, man. And it was one of the sets where I could reach out and touch the guy, man. And I'm like, that's Maceo.
Those are the best shows. I'm telling you, those are the best shows when you're...
So you prefer the more, not prefer, but the best shows come in the most intimate environments as opposed to, 25,000 people?
I think so.
No, I mean...
Yeah, for me, because I like to be close to the audience, because you want to make that connection with your audience. Okay. And it's really tough to make a connection with the audience. I mean, you're looking at thousands of people. Now, from an economic standpoint, that's a great thing. But, from an intimacy standpoint, I like the 300 room, 300 person room, the 500 person room, the 150 person room, because everybody kind of feels as though they're part of the show.
Now, for what I understand, though, your preparation, whether it's a 150 person room or 15,000 person room, your preparation
it's the same.
It's the same.
It's the same because I don't want to shortchange. I don't want to put this show together for a 5,000 seater and then shortchange the people when you have a 150 seater. I want that 150 seater to feel as though, wow, this more people need to see this.
Gotcha.
But I got to see it, but
I had the opportunity to experience. You all want to see this guy,
right?
Now you're also currently working on your Masters of Business Administration.
That's right.
University of Phoenix online.
Yeah.
How's that experience among all of the other things you have going? We talked offline a little while ago. You're juggling different things. What's juggling? Let me restate that. You're managing different aspects of your operation.
Right.
What does that do to your life?
It kind of causes you to prioritize things. You have to figure out, where can I get this in? Where can I get this little piece in? Getting the MBA is important to me because I want to learn more. As we get older, we should be learning more and more and more, keeping our brains active.
But you also have a business acumen. You're in financial services.
Right, absolutely.
Which you never get out of financial services.
No. But, that... Man, it helps me, all the different things that I have going on, just help me organize my life a little better. And, my wife helps me organize it because sometimes I may be doing too much of one thing and she reminds me of, hey, we got to get some balance.
Now, do you actually hear that when she comes in, or is it sometimes drowned out by all the other things that's in your head already?
No, I listen to her because she's like one of my best critics. So she'll tell me, look, we're having a little too much of this, so I might be away all the time, and if I can make some juggling, then I'll do that.
You know, I hear you. I'm gonna go there with you though. I mean, women that I interview, women that I talk to, many of them are looking for the same guy. You know, that's accomplished, that has it going on, dynamic, diverse, etc. And then they get that guy and realize that guy doesn't have a whole lot of time for me. Now, someone told me a joke recently and said, "Hey, how does someone date a guy like you?" And I said, "Well, you can't. I mean, because after all this is said and done, and if you have children as well, there's no more time in the day, and there's no more pieces of you that anyone else can get. How does one? You said prioritize. I hear the words, but how does that happen? How do you keep that part of your life going personally while you're trying to accomplish these other pursuits?
Well, it's important to make sure that you include people in your life who are on the same wavelength with you.
Gotcha.
Because everyone has to be working toward the same goal, or it's not going to work from a personal standpoint. So you have to have someone who understands what your goals are, and their goals have to be, they have to be supportive of that. And a lot of times we try to include people that really aren't on the same page with us. And so you end up, as you're trying to get closer to your goal, they're looking at.
But typically people you meet that are on the same page with you are either in the same industry as you are, or there's some kind of correlation, or you just happen to get lucky and this thing falls out the sky.
Well, I think I got lucky in that, one, my wife understands business, and that she enjoys music, and she understands, she sees the grind, and she understands it, because it's not all glitter and bright lights, and she understands that, and so she's helpful. To the point where when we're sending singles out to the radio stations for the different when we're doing promotions, she's right there. We're putting them together. I might have my kids helping and whomever, and that's important, because together we're going to succeed. We have to be together.
My observation, and you can tell me, has your observations or experiences been similar? My observation has been, when I see someone or I meet someone who has similar business interests, similar industrial goals as a female and a guy, and they come together and they're connecting, or they connect on that business level, on that industrial level. Sometimes it's real difficult to turn that into something personal. It's like, I met you this way. This is what what's the catch-all term? It's business.
Right.
And then you never get to that other part, even though it could work because both of you basically are the same human being. But you never get to that part. My observation has been that those oftentimes are ships passing in the night, and when you're trying to cultivate or maintain a relationship, like you just said a little bit earlier, you went through some seasons, you went through a change. Now, you didn't just go through that season and through that change by osmosis. Right. Something happened, or a series of things happened, and you just went through this time period where you were getting out of a relationship before you got into a new one. Right. Now, how much does this business, does this industry, does those pursuits affect those kind of relationships?
They can. They can affect it quite a bit, but one of the things that I'm very fortunate now is that, my wife will tell me that, look, you have a little time, let's make sure we do, if you're in town this weekend, let's do something with the kids, or let's have a date night, or something along those lines. Though it's incredibly important, to have someone who's helping you manage those moments and that time. So, that.
I just got you might have seen me, my cue from my time person let me know that I have to begin to wrap up. You have some concerts coming up. Tell me about those.
October the 25th, I'm performing at the Bethesda Blues and Jazz Supper Club in Bethesda, Maryland. I have a special guest, Miss Ann Nesby, is going to be joining me.
Ann Nesby.
Yeah. And then on October 26th, the next night, which is a Saturday, we're going to do it all over again at Rams Head, and I have two shows there at 6:30 and 9:30.
There's 97 Rams Heads.
Well, Rams Head in Annapolis, Maryland. Yeah,
okay.
and so that's going to be a crazy show there. I mean, just
That's going to be bananas.
oh man, it's just incredible. And Nancy's such a sweetheart, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. And then the week before that, I'm at the Rehoboth Beach Jazz Festival.
Okay.
I'm
Delaware?
yeah.
Okay.
I'm part of the tribute to James Brown. So I'm going to be playing with Sheila E. and Gerald Albright and Eric Darius.
James Brown?
Yeah.
So Boots is coming through.
Oh, that's Nick Coleon. So all of those
Nick
things.
Coleon,
Yeah,
man, that's
so,
great.
yeah.
So on the 25th, I will be in Bethesda to see you
right.
perform. On the 26th, I will actually be somewhere watching Parliament Funkadelic do their thing
All right.
somewhere in town that day, but I make sure that I send a representative over there on 26th. Nobody in my family wants to go there.
Right.
All right, folks, look here. Art Sherrod Jr., my man, I'm going to keep following you.
Thank you.
You got the dates. We'll be in touch. Roland Bubba Grimes. Roland Grimes, not just sports entertainment show. Signing off. Good night. God bless.